Hello.
Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Life of the Lost. I am Sam.
And I'm Meg.
And
this is Oreo.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see our little boy.
Spookmeister.
The baby.
We have like dozens of names. Well, I have dozens of nicknames for him.
You should tell them a few.
There's I
just put you on the spot.
Yeah. Oreo.
Sporio.
Spooky. Little Smirnoff. Bushki.
Little White Paw.
Brewski.
I say that's pretty good.
Yeah. So.
We have lots.
Yep.
But if you can hear, they're still grinding away outside with the construction. And they're still jackhammering. So this is what month?
This is like 6 months.
Yeah.
It's been a while. But today is not as bad as some days. Some days are horrible.
And I think because what they're doing is they're taking an entire building and they're jackhammering it down. It's a brick building and they've just been doing like floor by floor by floor. And it's been a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of sounds.
Mm-hmm. But today we are going to talk about the difference between men and women when it comes to adoption. And I think this was a really good topic you brought up when we were talking to Lillian for the first time. Just talking about the influences in your life when you were a kid and when growing up, if you had a lot of male adoptee friends or knew about any. Because I had a handful of women, or kids at the time, girls at the time, but not as many boys.
I feel like knowing you, something like you never realized how much of an impact adoption could be on your life. I don't even really know where to begin with adoption and my life and the place that it has in my life. Growing up, I had a pretty troubled childhood, a lot of emotions, sadness, anger. But I never really equated it to necessarily being adopted. It's strange. I just always knew that I had these uncontrollable emotions, and from a very young age is when I found music. So that was definitely completely life-altering discovery in my life, where that was like the sole purpose of my attention, and in terms of figuring out who I am and who at various stages of my life. Definitely peaked in middle school, and my whole high school life was surrounded by bands and being in a band, a serious band. My college life.
Would you maybe say that that's kind of why you didn't necessarily have time or the need or the want to kind of dig into adoption?
Yeah, I guess because in my mind, why look into adoption if I was too busy trying to figure out who I was, musician-wise? I was too busy trying to figure out my sound, the kind of learning guitar, learning the notes, learning the progressions, trying to figure out the ideas in my head out onto the, guitar, spending countless summer jobs, paying for the equipment that I needed for my band, trying to figure out our sound, trying to figure out who we are as a band, trying to figure out what we represent, trying to figure out the style, like clothing wise, the branding for us.
So no room.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why I went to art school, was literally just so we didn't have to pay somebody to do our album artwork and anything that we needed design wise. So at least that's kind of what I told myself.
Yeah. Did it change at all when you met your birth family or part of them?
Not at all. It's funny, I just met them when I was 13, and then it was just like, all right, well, back to the real world. And, I'd seen them, but it never really had a prolonged impact on my life.
After you got back from that trip, did you talk to them at all? Like, because we had social media back then, but
No, I only talked to them, I think, mid 20s. Pretty recently, they have found me on Facebook, and I've started to talk to them there. But even then, it's really spotty because they don't speak English. And
so the need to know any kind of like family history is kind of like you don't. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know, but it's not.
What are the things that you'd like to know?
Just who my dad is. That's about it. And with that comes, I guess, some fear when I think about it, anxiety, because I don't know who he'll be, or,
Yeah.
the person that I always wondered where where I came from. For better or for worse, I know that a lot of adoptees have this fear about meeting their parents, seeing if
they live up to the expectation.
Yeah, or that unknown piece of them is now found, so there's no mystery. And when there's no mystery, there's no aspiring, there's no clean slate, because you've seen where you've come from. There's no availability to recreate or reinvent yourself. Can be scary, I think. What about you with adoption?
I think I always kind of wanted to, if you can hear the sound in the background, Oreo has this Himalayan cheese kind of hard toy that he has been playing with and that he's been loving, so I'm just gonna let him rock with it for a little bit.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because you can take it away, but he'll just cry.
Yeah.
And his cries are pretty loud too, so
Probably just makes his bad pet parents just given to his habits and tendencies, but that's all right. So I think I always wanted to know, I guess, where I came from, but then when I went there and I kept in touch with my family a bit, and I don't know. I guess I was glad, because then I could kind of see where I came from. I wasn't very into, okay, now I want to see the cousins and uncles and aunts. That wasn't a priority, I guess. It was just wanting to see my family and just being okay kind of with that. Although I did end up meeting some aunts and uncles as well, which was nice to kind of see the similarities of my parents, and mostly looks, I think, is kind of what I was into at the time. Just when I went down there for the first and the last time, it was just kind of cool to compare what my aunt looks like, if she looks kind of like my mom or my dad's brother, how similar they are, or even my dad's dad, so my grandpa, how similar he looks to my dad and his tendencies and things like that, I think were really interesting. But I think one thing that I hear often is that, and more from women, is that they want to know kind of more where they came from, just because when they have kids, they want to be able to tell like some kind of story, like this is where I came from, this is my culture, and when people don't have that, it maybe that's scary. But I don't know, because I don't necessarily like. Maybe there's something when you're like, I was gonna say, while you're like baking a baby, that you just, it's in your nature that you kind of want to be able to tell them or show them, or I don't know. But that's kind of a difference that I've kind of heard recently.
Yeah, I never heard of that reason. That is interesting.
But I'm curious too, because you found like something that you wanted to do as a kid, and where you were able to kind of, that was kind of your identity. Therefore, I feel like you didn't need to necessarily search for something, whereas like somebody like me has kind of recently kind of come to a fork in the road, where I'm not necessarily searching for that identity from my birth parents anymore or my family, but I had been prior my entire life.
Yeah, I think you got me thinking about something. just the idea of I feel like it's a bigger extending problem or just topic, which is what about somebody's upbringing enables them to find something they love or constantly search for something that they love? Is it something in their upbringing that they're searching for, like that they
Well,
didn't get that somebody else would?
well, I think you look at a lot of the time you bring up Maya and comparing her and you when you go to the gym, right? You never had a father figure who went to the gym every single day
Yeah.
religiously, whether they were sick, like feverish or not. And that's something that you grew up, that she's now going to grow up seeing. Will she go to the gym every day? I don't know. But going back to just that thought of you kind of finding something, like I just look at your mom, like how career oriented she was and how driven and passionate she was about all the things she did, up into the marathons that she's done, up into
Yeah.
her career and changing course of careers, being ordinated as a rabbi in what was that, 2020?
Yeah, but
And I didn't have any of that. Like, yes, my mom was career dedicated, but I never saw her that way. I saw her primarily as my mom.
so sorry. I hear you, but like I'm like
You're having
so
a hard
close.
time with
I'm
that?
having a hard time and I don't
With
want him.
Oreos.
He's just going
I
ham with
know.
it.
He's just a poor baby. I'm gonna have to take away from you. He looks so cute though now. Maybe he'll
Yeah.
just kind of burrow into his little hole.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You were saying that your mom didn't.
Oh, I was just saying that your mom is very you saw her from a young age just be very passionate about things and like driven in the things that she did. And not to say that my mom or my dad, they weren't driven in the things that they did, but I don't feel like I necessarily heard about my
You know what's
mom's
interesting
job.
about that?
Huh.
I'm very interested in your interpretation of that because when I think back to my childhood, all I can think of was that she was never there.
Your mom was never
There was no
there.
reason why she wasn't there. She was just working.
But in the back of your mind, do you think that that's kind of...
I only learned why she was working when I was older.
Huh?
There was never like, oh, Sam, let me, I'm working hard for this, I'm working hard for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was never, she never talked to me like an adult, like I talked to Maya,
Yeah.
which is interesting. I think,
But somehow you were able to kind of
I'll
take
tell,
those tendencies, though.
I'll tell you what, though, like, I think the one thing that stuck out to me, which is why I feel like maybe it could have potentially been a reason, is that I was alone a lot. There was no parameters. Nobody was watching me. I could do whatever I want. And I felt like within that, whatever you want, I found something. I don't know what that is, but it was music, but that was just interesting to me.
Yeah, how you
Were
were
you?
able to...
Like, how was your kid? Like, were you watched? Were you told not to do certain things?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see, that's...
But I
Damn.
think you had the freedom and the availability to do the things that you needed to do, or, as a kid, maybe you kind of had to self-structure in a way where your mom, she did have structure for you, I feel like, such as like sending you to camps and making sure that you were occupied and not getting into trouble per se for trying to, I guess, put those things in motion. But I know like sometimes after school you didn't have anything to do and you came home, but what you would do would be mostly go and practice with your band or just practice on
Well,
your
even
own.
I guess before my band, like before music was even like a thing. I'm just thinking about my life, and I just remembered being really into movies, playing with my action figures a lot. I really enjoyed that. I don't know why though.
So I'm curious if it's a like a male female thing, or if it's just kind of where our parents,
It's a good question.
kind of set us up for. And it's also different too, I feel like, because how I also think it's kind of like in our DNA too as well. But
What do you mean?
how we view how we view adoption, how we understand it, how we kind of try to digest it in our own way. Like I want to kind of know your parents to kind of see where, but then again, would that even matter? Because like your mom is the one who raised you, therefore you took on the tendencies of her primarily. But I don't know. Also, what is your dad super dedicated to something? Was your mom, did they have any or did your mom have any hobbies? Does your dad have any hobbies? It would just be interesting to kind of to see if that has anything to do with it, DNA wise. Like, is it in your blood that you're super focused on doing one thing, or is it just, was it your mom, your adopted mom?
I'll definitely tell you though, the super focusing on it came. Wow, I can't believe I'm going to say this because this much time has passed, but it took a lifetime to establish that. It wasn't easy, and I don't know why. Like I do know why. It's interesting. Like you've had a different experience with the idea that I'm about to bring up, but I just saw a TikTok earlier this morning, or a reel earlier this morning, about David Goggins, and about how he gets through these like long runs, or he gets through these certain things, and he says that he has literally like a freaking Rolodex of everybody who said something negative about him, everybody who didn't believe in him, everybody who talked crap about him behind his back. And he says that he like a memorization, like he could just see every one of them, and it just fuels him. It lights this crazy fire under him. And that was me growing up. I had this insane desire to prove everybody wrong. And I ultimately found too in my high school years that it wasn't necessarily as, it needed to be in a sustainable anger, a sustainable fury. I realized that I would, if I, it would start the, it would be the spark to start the coals. The coals would be it's the thought process, I guess, of like, you get really angry. Like this is how it used to be when I was, sorry. This is how it used to be when I was in a band. I would see a rival band create a pretty decent song, and I would get so freaking tight, so tight. And then right when that tightness was about to explode, I said, all right, we're going to write down this riff right now. Check it out. Okay. Like it would just like make my brain turn in ways that it never thought, in ways that it never thought before. So like that anger just turned into like focus. And I just like, it was like a conversion where I could just my anger into passion, and that passion could be sustainable, and I could use it for hours and hours and hours. So I wasn't being fueled by anger. I was being fueled by the dedication to becoming a better musician, a better bandmate, a better worker, studier. And so over the times I learned how to pull from different things, even though I feel like I lost a little bit of that rage that once fueled me. And I feel it's done a detriment to my work process just because of our upbringings. Mm-hmm. My rage is so pure and passionate. There's no malicious, but because like from your upbringing, it's a very sensitive topic. Mm-hmm. And it creates
it's like a fear that I have with anger. I think it's sensitive because where I came from, it wasn't. Interesting way to look at this is one time I was talking to Maya and she said, how come grandma, which is Sam's mom, how come I've never seen grandma angry or mad about anything ever? And I said, because your grandma's very calm and she's very aware of her emotions, and she just doesn't need to get angry. She's able to communicate it, and that's how it should be. And my upbringing wasn't that way. And it was a lot of anger. And so I have such a battle with anger where I can understand where you're coming from when it fuels you. And for a very long time, whenever I would run, I would think of all of the people who were assholes to me about why I want to be skinny. About, they would say, well, you're skinny enough. Like, why do you have to do this? You're skinny enough. And in my mind, it was never about being skinny. It was about being fit. And then I would kind of relate this to Maya as well, because I would think, I'm doing this run, I'm making sure that I'm at this aptitude so I can, or a certain, I'm able to go this fast or this distance, because what happens if I have to carry her, which is something like I heard you say when we were younger, and protect her in a different way, like such as, which has happened before when I've gone to pick her up from school and she's been really sick and I've had to carry her home. She wasn't even able to make it into a car because she was very nauseous. So it's just things like that where I want to be prepared, I want to be ready, I want to be focused. But I fight with that at the same time because I just equally don't want to be angry. And it's like just trying to harness this giant ball of fire and be able to use it when to my best ability, but also kind of being afraid of being angry because I'm understanding where and what that does to you, and so it's very hard for me to just kind of turn these things on and off.
And that's interesting that you brought up my mom, and what I think maybe you and Maya don't even understand is that my mom is angry all the time. But I don't know how she does it, and I had it, but being with you, my state of mind has been like altered, for better, for worse, for better and for worse. Different aspects. It's complex measuring. I'm so at awe by it. You don't even realize that she is angry because she gives that same anger intensity with her happiness. I can't even verbally describe.
It's like
how
it's
she does
literally
it.
like a box, and each box has a opening on each end. It's like her anger goes into this box and magically just kind of gets turned out into happiness, and how
Not
she
even,
literally like
because she'll be like this.
expresses
She'll be
it.
like, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Because this is the way it should be done. Oh, okay. Like that.
Like I said though, it goes into one like angry, then you say something like, "Oh, this is the way it should be," and then it comes out like no big deal. There's not this after. It's like when you get a bad taste in your mouth and it just lingers. Nothing really lingers with her.
That's probably why. I think because maybe where you come from, there's a strong emphasis on not forgiveness. Like forgiveness is a thing that is maybe talked about but never really like truly.
It's like you could say I'm sorry, but the next day you just do it again, kind of
Yeah.
thing, and it's not, which makes the sorry not feel genuine. And two, it's also growing up. There's a lot of animosity on if you did something, how you're supposed to do it, and if you do it wrong, I'm not gonna let you forget that you did it wrong. Like I'm gonna bring that up throughout the day, or maybe I just bring it up now like 15 times and I just hammer that shit into your mind. And so that's where that's a big difference, I think, for sure.
Yeah. She definitely shows the pros of not being in a family, where she can be however she wants to be and act and do.
But it's interesting because this has like turned into like this kind of thoughts about your mom, but
Yeah.
it is super interesting because she does have a lot of friends. A lot of the women don't have partners, but these are like very good lifelong friends that she's had. But then once again, she doesn't have to go home to anybody and like really answer, I guess, to anybody. Therefore, I feel like she doesn't
How do you
necessarily.
think that she made lifelong friends? It's because she hasn't had anybody. The reality
Yeah.
is that when you have a wife or a husband, you're going to get pulled away from your friends. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
Some people are able to survive it more than others. I don't know why that is. Maybe it could be from insecurity. Maybe it could just be for the wanting to be there more. I don't like that. I don't like the message that it upholds. Part of the reason why I don't like the idea of marriage. I don't like the idea of a relationship because I don't like the idea of being controlled in that way.
Mm.
But I do like the idea of family. I don't like the idea of being alone either. But what
Yeah.
alone means to me doesn't have to be your ideal version of what a family is. Could be a great group of friends. That is your family. Let me not get away from the fact that, you know, relationships affect friendships. It can make people lose contact. It's unfortunate, but it does happen a lot. And responsibilities too, but I don't know. It's a good question though.
It's like on the outside, like you said, there's all of these pros and cons that come with with being in a relationship and kind of being single. And it would be nice to be able to like pick at, have one and then have the perks of the other, but it doesn't always necessarily work out that way.
Yeah. You find yourself wanting whatever side of the coin you don't have, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And there's obviously worse off situation, more toxic relationships, more responsibilities with more children,
Yeah.
different age children. Just find yourself literally with no time because each one has a different activity, each one goes to different school, each one has different sets of friends. So that could get very overwhelming.
Yeah, just thinking of that. I think this past week when we had Motek, your mom's dog, and Maya, I felt very guilty for leaving because I didn't, and I guess I've kind of lately felt guilty because Maya just wants to do everything that we do, and it's hard because it's like, okay, I want to go to the gym or I want to go swimming, and she's like, oh, I want to come too, and in my head I'm like, I wish you could come, like that'd be actually really fun, but knowing that it also sucks because I feel like I can't do the things that I want to do and the times that I want to either. But I was actually just listening to speaking of David Goggins, right? I was listening to I think one of the very first book he published, and it's an audiobook, and I really like it because it's kind of like an audiobook. His friend reads it, and then they also have a conversation during the chapters and sometimes after the chapters, and it's been kind of nice because how he was talking about it is that when you're in relationships and when you have a family and you have work and you have obligations and plans and things that you're supposed to meet, he's like, that's why you have to own the morning completely, because otherwise you will get sucked into all of these other things and you won't be able to do the things that you woke up initially planning on doing, which was kind of nice because he was talking about, which kind of made me want to wake up at 4 in the morning again, because he was talking about how that's what he does is like he was giving a few examples of him and then a few examples of like friends and kind of what they do and how they kind of own the morning in that sense.
It makes sense. I need to get back into that too. It's tough.
We're kind of going off topic with the main topic just being about like the differences between men and women when it comes to adoption, but I also think it's very broad as well. And I think your upbringing is very
The reason why I
important
brought
to
the
it.
upbringing was because I'm trying to understand what makes somebody find something that they love. That's it, adopted or not adopted. What makes somebody find something that they're passionate about? What are the parameters to set a young child up to figuring that out? What do you need to do as a parent to enable that child to do those things? I don't have the answer, but we see two results. One took a lot longer to potentially figure out, and if figured out, and the other one is found it earlier on, but is still working on it,
Mm-hmm.
But what's wild is that I can say that music definitely got me like steered me away from a lot of potential trouble I could have been in. I'll tell you that.
And I feel like it helped you not necessarily question things as much. I feel like I had a lot of time to just sit there and like question a lot of things, and especially growing up,
There's no
obviously,
time
like
to question when I'm trying to become the best musician in the world.
it's like growing up. I think as even seeing it with Maya and the things she comes home talking about, like the drama in camp or in school, it's interesting because these girls are very attuned to each other, to their parents, to the things that they hear, and they talk about it a lot, and they question each other, and then
Well,
it
it's
just
definitely society now. Society's
yeah.
a very spineless backbone nowadays. Everybody can't. Everybody has to be on a side. There's nobody who can tote the line. There's very rarely people who can ask genuine questions, and that's very scary. A
Yeah.
lot of weak-willed people out there who will say just about anything to get an extra like, to bandwagon everything. It's sad. It actually really is sad.
Yeah, and I feel like it kind of goes into probably more, and I don't know because I didn't grow up as a boy, but like going more into girls and how it's kind of like always a popularity contest, and having those kind of those things, these questions about yourself need to be answered. I feel like a lot of the time, even when we were in Minnesota one time this year, in the beginning of the year, we were we were downstairs and I heard Maya. She was upstairs playing with all the kids, and she's kind of by the hallway and it kind of echoes the stairway. And I heard somebody ask her if she was an Indian, like a Native American and Indian. And I couldn't hear her response. And I ran upstairs immediately because I was curious if she knew what she was. And I also didn't really like the tone of that person asking. It didn't sound like it was like a curious question. It sounded kind of mean, and she was the only colored kid up there. So I just wanted to it's like I don't necessarily want to interfere, but I also want her to know. And I also kind of just wanted that kid to know that I heard you. Not that I can do anything about it. But yeah, it's just kind of having these questions maybe asked more, and kind of needing to know the answer, where I feel like with boys, it's like, where are you from? I don't know. Oh, okay, let's keep playing this video game.
Yeah, no,
Where
I mean,
girls, it's like, where are you from? I don't know. Why don't you know? Why don't you ask your mom? Why doesn't your mom know? And it just goes down this like
yeah.
loophole of hell because you can't feel like
Especially
you
where
can
you,
get out.
I feel like where you grew up was a lot different than where I grew up.
Yeah.
Nobody even really questioned where somebody came from like that, per
But is
se.
that just because you're from a boy's perspective
Well, I
growing
think
up?
just because there's a ton of different nationalities over the place, no one really said, "What are you?"
Ah,
They just kind of like you assume in your mind like, "Oh, it's probably African American."
yeah.
But obviously, the nitty gritty ones, like the niche ones, right? Like, I'm Jamaican. I'm Dominican. I don't know. What's Haiti? I'm Haitian.
Yeah.
Those ones you learn more growing up, like you when you ask more.
Yeah.
But I guess like people just assume that like I'm Mexican or I'm South American.
Right.
No one really asks me per se, but
So you weren't really questioned as much as a kid? Because I was always questioned.
not really.
Okay.
But if there was, it was like that. It was like, oh, okay.
And just dropped it and
Yeah,
let
it's like,
it.
oh, well, you look Mexican. Oh, yeah, no, I get that. All right, well. Anyways, two on
And
two, guys. We're playing a shoot for who shoots first. Like, that's how it was.
and it probably didn't bother you. You
Yeah.
probably didn't even think twice of it. Where that bothered me. Like it just is something
Because
like that.
girls
Like
fester, man.
yeah, and
They're
it's something I like,
faster.
which I guess is kind of going back to the point of just knowing or not knowing, or feeling like you need to belong. But yeah, just an interesting concept, I suppose, to think about.
Sometimes I think, like, damn, am I getting too opinionated because I'm getting too egotistical or something? Or am I getting opinionated because I'm getting older and I'm truly, genuinely understanding the demographics of women versus women and men and the differences between them? And more and more, which is why I'm like, think like, you know.
But it's just interesting. I guess an example, what I was thinking about earlier today was I feel as if society has made it their mission to prove that men are more egotistical, they're more aggressive, they're more mean, they're not emotional. And a funny example from this weekend was we took Maya to the park to swings. And there was a family of 4 kids, and they were on the swings. And in New York City, there's a row of swings. And how you get on a swing is usually there's sometimes a line, sometimes it's who's the fastest one to the empty swing. And that's something I'm not really used to, because if you go to my elementary, there's literally like rows and rows and rows of swings. I've never had a problem like waiting for somebody to get off a swing or anything. There's just so
It's
many.
funny.
But here it's kind of a problem. So she was waiting and she finally got onto a swing, and what did they say to her? It's a family, it's a siblings of 4 kids.
She was waiting and she caught a swing that one of the kids jumped off of, and she got there quick, and
He supposedly wasn't done swinging.
yeah, but she got on. And then apparently there was a 5-minute time limit that the boy had for her. And when it was close to 5 minutes, he was starting to count down.
For when Maya needed to get off the swing.
Yeah. And this is why I hate me. I don't know. I kind of hate the person who I am. I know that my mom never policed me like that. My mom never saved me like that. I was always left to fend for myself. You know, growing up, I did face racism. Growing up, I did get bullied. Something about that, for better or for worse, defines who you are and gives you a purpose in life. Knowing that nobody's gonna, which is ironic that you're saying what you're saying earlier, but nobody's gonna save you. You just have yourself to get you out. And how that builds character, especially from a younger age. Which is partially why I decided to sit down, because I was kind of
Well, what did you say to him?
I said that if it's okay, with a very stern voice and demeanor, if it's okay if she spends a few more minutes on swinging on the swing set. And he said, but I just got on a few minutes ago. And I said, I understand that, but would it be okay if she could swing a few more minutes? He paused, didn't say anything. Right before he was going to say something, I said, well, only if it's okay with you. Is it okay with you? And he looked at me and he said, okay.
And then he walked away.
Yeah, and sat down.
And then you came over to me and just said, do you think you could handle that? Because I don't want to anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like my subconscious was like, my mind was just like, damn, like, I don't know how to parent.
Well, I'm also curious, though, too. I don't think you're ruining everything, but there has to be something to say about Maya being a little girl versus you being a little boy as well. Or maybe your mom was just very oblivious and she didn't even see any of it. Like she says, you know, she didn't even know you were bullied in certain ways, or she didn't even know you needed help in the playground or whatever it was. And maybe it was good that she didn't help and was oblivious to these things. But it just is hard too, because Maya's maybe not as were you as confident as she is at this point? Because she's not that confident in herself and the things she says. Or even to have enough confidence to say, like, hey, like, move your feet, lose your seat, like, this is my swing.
No, she wouldn't say that, but neither did I.
How do you think you would have dealt with that situation?
If I was a kid?
Yeah.
Probably would have just walked away.
Would have got off the swing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It would have hurt. I would have felt it for a day or two, and I would have gotten over it. Would have told my mom I just want to go home, which I'm sure it happened. And then I got over it, only realizing as I got older, I could be more physical about it. But then again, I was very tactical about it too.
Yeah.
I was never an idiot.
Because I was just thinking too that from an optics kind of standpoint, you also kind of didn't want to sit there and battle these kids anymore either because, like, you're a guy.
You know what it is too? One of the reasons I think that I was able to change myself when I needed to change was because I had the availability to be angry. I had the availability to let my rage out, to break things, to scream, to shout, to curse, without fear of being reprimanded in the way that could have destroyed me. You know, if a boy acts out, gets all crazy and aggressive, starts throwing things, and a father smacks him, the level of neutering that boy will feel for the rest of his life is something I could never even describe. But maybe that's from me growing up without a dominant male figure in my family. But I just could never imagine being scared of my dad, or not even scared, but just like
Told not to act out.
or knowing like the thought, and even a thought in my mind that my dad could beat me up if he wants to. Even that thought, even if my dad never showed any kind of animosity, the thought that somebody else in my family could beat me up.
Or that the thought you have to suppress feelings because of fear.
Yeah, that was just so unheard of for me. And part of why I am who I am, and part of why I do not like the other side of my family because they do that. And I don't like me because I do that sometimes too. I don't want to suppress her feelings. She's allowed to act out how she wants to act out. And I don't know the end result. She is a girl. She's not a boy. But I just feel like she needs that. For better or for worse. Yeah. It's an experiment. But I just...
And I don't know, going back to the swing set situation, I don't know what the best solution would have been. To not say anything and her kind of look at us, and then we're like, oh, well, we're not going to do anything. And... going back to the stories of you looking at your mom and needing your mom to speak up and to say something, on your behalf, but you didn't get it. Would that have helped you understand things more? I don't know. But it just sucks because, and this is kind of maybe helicopter parenting too, is when you came back, I instantly got up and went over there. And I was eating my dinner and I just stood behind her. She didn't even know I was there. And I stood behind her and I just kept looking at these kids because I'm just like, don't fucking say a word. I was already so angry at the situation and just the optics of you being a man, being up there talking to the kids, trying to kind of ease the situation, and me being a woman who's supposed to be more calm. I definitely wasn't calm. I was so frustrated and furious because I even need to be standing there being patient, watching out for her, but that's just not that's not how I feel like society makes it seem. Like the women are supposed to be more calm, but there's no way in hell. And I actually ended up butting heads with them a little bit, only to realize you are an adult and I do make decisions. You're not going to make a decision for me, which is what I ended up ultimately saying to them is I'm not going to argue with her. She's staying with you guys. She's staying on the swing. But it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, I get it. You are bringing up solid points about how you're kind of left to fend for yourself. Yeah. I don't want to leave her and make her feel like she's alone either. So it's...
Yeah, I guess I definitely know that when she's here and there's nobody else fending for herself, the idea of putting out her rage is something that I'm going to start being more protective of. She needs to tell me to go fuck myself. She needs to tell me, don't fucking push me. She needs to know that I'm going to bend the knee. Because she needs to feel in control. I'm in control now, Dad. I want her to feel like that. Because I feel that will echo.
Did you feel like that when you were a kid?
Yes.
You determined your mom's direction?
Yes. And that made me feel responsible. powerful, a purpose. I control the ship, for better or for worse. Maybe I learned that when I grew up later on with things like controlling the consistency with my passions, with being consistent, staying consistent. I control it. You know, I don't know. But that's kind of what I want to start doing with her too, because she needs that. You know, she needs that. But anyways, getting all
going all over the place, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's this week's thought.
Yeah.
Thoughts.
Yeah, sorry, gotta end it
That's
a
okay.
little early because, you know, we got
Things to
some
do.
stuff to do. But
Yes. But all right, thank you guys for joining us on this whirlwind of thoughts.
yes, and our progression with our experimentation with our video
Oh yeah, our first video.
video setup. So it'll be a work in progress. So, but thank you for bearing with us.
And for being here chilling with Oreo too.
Yeah.
So we'll catch you next time on Life of the Lost.
Yep. Peace.